Hey ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another video. Today we're going to be reacting to Maximilian Dude's top 10 Capcom fighting games. That's actually a good idea to make a list video on Capcom fighters, honestly. Played a lot of them. But yeah, we're going to be reacting to his video, give my thoughts on it and everything. He literally just dropped it a day ago, so it's relatively fresh. So let's get started. He has such a banger of an intro.
We had the conversation of the top 10 Capcom fighting games with Yo video games, and of course those are delegations, not just conversations, that we have to like argue our things that we want to be in there. And it went the way it did, you know, and certain games made it to a certain point. So all I want to do, as I ask myself, and I don't have to delegate my favorite games into those spots, where does my top 10 Capcom fighting game list actually go? I sort of wanted to investigate that, because as I think about it, I know maybe a few spots and where games would eventually lie, but where and how, I don't know how that full list would be. I really don't. So, with that being said, I wanted to make a top 10 Capcom fighting games list for me personally, and I'm just gonna start throwing up games because there's 10 games, there's already several games up here, you know? So let's just start getting some good boys in here. Is this Vampire Savior? That's Vampire Savior. I'll throw in MVCI Fighter, Ultimate Marvel 3, Street Fighter Alpha 2. This feels like it's missing some. Start going through here and I'll start picking them out. There's Alpha 2. CVS 2 is on here. Jesus Christ. I need Super Turbo. Just with my own basic consideration of Capcom fighting games, the ones that I would put up there just in general to begin this list: Alpha 2, Street Fighter 6, Third Strike, Ultra or Street Fighter 4, MVCI, Ultimate Marvel 3, Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Marvel vs. Capcom 1, Capcom vs. SNK 2, Darkstalkers, Vampire Savior, X-Men VSF, Street Fighter EX or EX2 Plus, and the Street Fighter 2 series. That feels about right. I don't think I would put a Power Stone. If I would add one up here, while I like Rival Schools and Project Justice, obviously, I've never like been super in love with them. I like them, you know? But I have to turn this into a top 10. We got to turn this from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 games. I got to bring it down. So what is the number 10th game on this list? Let's bring this down to an actual top 10. Alpha 2 should stay. Third Strike should stay. Should Street Fighter 4 stay? That's a question. I think Street Fighter 6 should stay. I think the EX game is going to have to go, and Power Stone is going to have to go. And I'm going to say X-Men versus Street Fighter is probably gonna have to go. I'm thinking I know my...
That kind of breaks in my heart a little bit, only because I'm a big fan of X-Men versus Street Fighter. I feel like the game is definitely more balanced than the other Marvel games were. Like, specifically Marvel 2. I understand what makes Marvel 2 such a fanatic fighting game, and I love that game, don't get it twisted, but the broken nature of the game makes it hard to understand matchups in the game, to the point where people who play the game competitively in tournaments only use the big characters, like the OP characters like Cable, Storm, Sentinel, Magneto. Like, it's like when the game is delegated to that, it's like it's hard for me to really get into. But X-Men versus Street Fighter, but also it's because I'm a big fan of X-Men, so that's another reason why. But I completely understand why Max exempted it from the list. Because remember, this is just his opinion, but I would have liked it if he kept X-Men versus Street Fighter on here and see where he would have put it, but he ended up sacrificing that, but that's cool.
Number 10, but I'm also knowing which one I want to take off of here, and I'm thinking it's going to be Ultra Street Fighter 4. I think I'm going to take it off. All right, so that leaves us with a 10. We have 10 games now.
You know, I'm actually surprised that Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is still on there and not Ultra Street Fighter 4. But you also have to keep in mind, he's also responsible for basically making Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite good by creating Infinite Beyond when he had that little indie team set up do all that. So that's probably the reason why. So it's definitely his own bias, which I completely understand, but it's like, and to me, I think Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is a fun game and all, but I wouldn't consider it one of Capcom's best fighting games. But keep in mind, this is just his opinion, but of course my opinions aren't going to always align with his. We are two completely different people, and that's understandable.
This is my list. I'm removing Ultra Street Fighter 4 because I have several other Street Fighter games up here that I would prefer to be up here. Let's find number 10, and I'm going to be real, it just Hit me. Number 10 is MVCI. And MVCI, there's a good reason why. It's got a couple of my favorite versions of characters in there. MVCI is a legit game that really gave me mind expansion of like how a versus game could be. Instead of being a sequel to Marvel 3, it was more of a sequel to MVC 1, which was very disappointing for a lot of people. But obviously, like, MVCI is a game that I can always have fun with because its tag system, I think, is brilliant. It needed more refinement, and we tried to do that with our version of the game. But still, I deeply enjoy it. Deeply have like a great time with it, but it's also a grossly flawed game. I love MVCI because of the options it provides, but I do not love its roster, and I do not love its visuals or its story mode. What game goes after that, though? After MVCI,
it just makes me wonder why. It just makes me wonder why you put that on there. But he basically kind of analyzed it the same way I did, which is that MVCI definitely is fun in terms of the combat and attack system. Like, it's like gameplay wise, that game is really good. It's just that the visuals, the story mode were just lackluster and everything. The roster was also lackluster and everything. It just makes you wonder. I'm like, you literally could have put X-Men versus Street Fighter on that bottom spot. I'm just saying.
This is friggin' tough. I'm gonna start throwing out some options up here of where the next game or two could be, just in this general space. These three are what I'm thinking right now. I would say of all of these three, Vampire Savior would go at number 9. Obviously a deeply inspirational game, but I think it takes number 9 of a game that's always fun, always enjoyable, wonderful characters, is the epitome of Darkstalkers. What else do we need to say, dude? It's Vampire Savior, but it's extremely niche. You know, it's a game that is pretty much for fighting game nerds. Like, this is pretty much people that are diehard old head Capcom fans. And yeah, I've always found it appealing. It's always been a super easy game to jump into from a low level, and then watching it at high level is insanely impressive. So yeah, I love Darkstalkers. After
I agree with him on that one. Vampire Savior definitely is the best of the Darkstalkers games. I do love the first two, don't get it twisted. Like, the first game was pretty good. Night Warriors is also really good too, but Vampire Savior Night Warriors is really good, but Vampire Savior undoubtedly was definitely the best of the three, and it was definitely peak Darkstalkers. It's one of the reasons why I think Darkstalkers should return. The only reason why it likely wouldn't is because Darkstalkers just doesn't have as much of a fan base, or as widely as recognized of being like a household name compared to Street Fighter or Marvel vs. Capcom.
That, I would probably put Capcom versus SNK 2 at number 8. And we just played it.
The only thing I disagree with him on with Capcom versus SNK 2 is the placement on his list. He placed it at number 8 on this list. This game would be number 1 for me personally. That's the only thing that I agree. So it's just a tiny disagreement, nothing more. But otherwise, I'm very glad that he put this game on the list.
A bunch of CVS2. It's wonderful. It is effectively Street Fighter 4 before Street Fighter 4, but it's a Capcom vs. SNK game. I'm like, well, realistically, like, once Street Fighter 3 Third Strike wasn't really a Street Fighter game to a lot of Street Fighter fans, if you wanted a true Street Fighter experience, it was pretty much CVS2 for the longest time. Obviously, I like CVS2 a lot. I've put a lot of time into the game in the past. It's fun that it's out now to sort of like show all that cool shit off that's in the game, but it doesn't beat out Marvel 1, and Marvel 1 goes to number 7. The problem with
I mildly disagree. I don't think Capcom vs. I don't think Clash of Superheroes is better than CVS2, but that's just me.
Marvel 1 is that in terms of like content and what it is, I just love it, man. I think it's neat.
But I do agree, Clash of Superheroes is a fantastic game.
I just love the way Marvel 1 looks. I think its utilization of characters, like a 16-ish character roster, with what they did is so good. Like, they chose the perfect characters for such a small roster. The way the game utilized assists was also fun, but also not like lame in some way. Dude, it's MVC 1. To me, it's like the best looking of all the Marvel vs. Capcom games. It was one of the first like big competitive games I really got into. The reason I learned how to play an arcade stick. So, you know, to me, MVC 1's got to go kind of high, but I agree. There's not much game to that game. More of like a cool concept of what Marvel vs. Capcom could be until you get to the actual glorious execution of what MVC could really be. After that, though, and you know what? I've changed my mind. Oh, shit, bro. My brain is fucking melting. I think I've come to a conclusion. Street Fighter Alpha 2 is at number 7 For all the same reasons I talked about MVC1, Alpha 2 is right there. But I personally like Versus Series games more, so it goes a bit higher. But like presentation and everything in Alpha 2 is just friggin' god tier. I love it, man. Everything about the way Alpha 2 looks and it sounds and it plays, it just feels so good. For a non-dashing Street Fighter, it's my favorite one. If we're gonna play an old Street Fighter game that is like not dashing, I end up liking this one probably the most overall.
Yeah, I agree. Street Fighter Alpha 2, as much as I love Alpha 3, I still love Alpha 3. Love that game. Really love it. But I'd be lying if I didn't admit I am a bigger fan of Alpha 2. Like, Alpha 2, I think, had the best system in it. It was definitely more balanced in terms of character roster. Like, it was definitely far more balanced than Alpha 3 it was. Alpha 3 kind of suffers from the same problem that Marvel vs. Capcom 2 suffered from, in the sense that the game was just really broken, especially with Vism. Like, that whole system is broken as hell, and the character balance is pretty much all over the place. Not to the same degree as Marvel vs. Capcom 2, not that bad, but still enough to the point where you just know what's so, enough to understand any broken aspects of a character. You know what I mean? But otherwise, Alpha 2 is definitely like the best. Is definitely the best one of the three Alpha games. So I agree with Max on this one.
So that being said, right above it goes Street Fighter 6. I gotta look at this list, bro.
I would not argue with him on that, honestly. Even if I may not agree with the placement, I wouldn't argue with him as far as putting it above Alpha 3. Or he could even put it above Third Strike, and I would be like, I understand why. I can understand why Street Fighter 6 is a lot of people's favorite Capcom fighting game right now. Or even if they say it's the best that Capcom's ever done, I would sit here and be like, you know what? I don't have any objections to that, because I can't think of any, because Street Fighter 6 is a fantastic game, to the point where if anyone called it their favorite, I wouldn't argue with them.
It might change. So yeah, Street Fighter 6, it's great. It's fun. It's currently still being updated. It's going through shit. It's good, man. It's got a bunch of new fun characters. I'm still waiting on characters in it, but it's like, its systems are pretty engaging, and they've really thought about it. They need to be refined, obviously. Yeah, Street Fighter 6 goes on 6. I don't have to tell you. It also completely opened up the way people play fighting games and shit. But here's the problem. Marvel 1, to me, is like fucking goated, bro. This game...
That's a tough one. Because on one hand, I agree with him on the sense that this game, Marvel vs. Capcom Clash of Superheroes, is such a goated game. I just don't know if I 100% agree with his placement on the list, but I totally understand his reasons.
Deeply inspired me, has a huge influence on my life. So it's crazy to me that I was about to put Alpha 2 above MVC 1. This mid-tier section is kind of tough for me, but I'm gonna start hovering some of the games around here, and we'll see if we can maybe start switching some stuff around. But I don't think I will. I think I'm feeling fairly confident. MVC 1 is my lucky horse race pick, This one I'm trying to get as far as possible, but I know I cannot put it in like a top 5 situation. Number 4 is Marvel 2. And there's a reason. And as I knew he was going to put that one above the thought process in my head, the more juvenile battle between these games has always put Marvel vs. Capcom 1 over Marvel vs. Capcom 2. But I think as time has gone on, I deeply respect MVC 2, because this is the game, I said this just before, this is the game we are still playing to this day. And no, I don't mean Marvel 2 just came out. Yeah, we're actually playing it to this day. Like, no, dude, all team-based fighting games are pretty much Marvel vs. Capcom 2 still. We just had this big ass conversation where it's like, yeah, MVC2 is that game that was so deeply inspirational when you first saw it, so impossible to comprehend, so unimaginably insane. How do you make any of that shit work? Bro, they did it. They made it work. It became the new standard, And not to mention, the game is fun as shit. The amount of actual discoverability and things that are in here are still being found. Dudes are still posting crazy shit that no one's ever really like figured out before, because now you can with this new shit. MVC2 like means a lot to me. It means a lot to like fighting games in general. It's like the absolute impossibility that they made possible. Design miracle that they turned this shit and made it actually work. We have 3 games left.
I just wanted to let him finish what he had to say before I threw in my 2 cents on it. So the only thing that I disagree with him on is just the placement of where MVC2 is compared to Capcom versus SNK2 to me. And I've always maintained this position, and I'm pretty sure some people watching this video is going to heavily disagree with me, which is fine. I think Capcom versus SNK2 is a better game than Marvel vs. Capcom 2, like in terms of gameplay and status balance, all that stuff. But I do, you know, again, I do think that Marvel vs. Capcom 2 deserves a spot on this list, because I mean, there's nothing else for me to add as far as Marvel 2 is concerned, because Max did a great job with articulating exactly what makes MVC2 such a fantastic fighting game, and an iconic one, an inspirational one at that. So yeah, there's nothing else to add. If there's only one thing that I disagree with, is just the placement of that game versus Capcom versus SNK2, but that's all.
Third strike, Ultimate Marvel 3, Street Fighter 2. Where does my
and I know someone's probably going to say, oh, you seem to be disagreeing with Max a lot. Don't take it the wrong way. Like, obviously, first of all, Maximilian Dude is one of my favorite YouTubers. That's one. But 2, it's just that, like I said, despite him being an amazing content creator, and I love his personality too. He's a great guy. I would definitely love to meet him one day. It's just that, like I said, we're both very different people. We're not always going to agree. He's honestly someone who I would love to have a conversation with as far as these games are concerned. Honestly, I think it would make for an interesting conversation.
Top 3 go. What is the third top fighting game in this list? Street Fighter 2. Street Fighter 2 is at number 3, because obviously number 1 is what we think it is. Obviously, you guys know me.
I already know. He's gonna put Third Strike as his number 1. Max has always been very vocal about how much he loves Third Strike, so I already know he's gonna put that as his favorite fighting game of all time. I already know, and it's not. And you know what? It's not hard to see why he would consider that his favorite. And for a lot of folks, Street Fighter 3 Third Strike would be a favorite for most people.
We know what number 1 is. Yeah, Street Fighter 2, I lived it, man. Like, I don't look back at this game not knowing what it was like when it happened. It's like me talking to my mom when we fucking landed on the moon and shit. It's like, well, I wasn't there for that, so like, obviously was impactful and crazy, but like, I lived that shit. This was one of the defining events in the past like 40 years of like video games. Street Fighter 2 was a monumental defining event. You think like Elden Ring is a big thing? Bro, no, dude. Street Fighter 2 was so big. It was such a big deal. We don't need to talk about Street Fighter 2. We know everything that can be said. And the second best Capcom fighting game of all time is Ultimate Marvel 3.
I agree. I agree with him. I strongly agree with him. He put that game above Marvel 2 and Marvel, he put that above those two, and I actually agree with him. Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is definitely the best of the Marvel vs. Capcom name of the series. Like, even though I still maintain my X-Men vs. Street Fighter position, if we're talking specifically the Marvel vs. Capcom titles, i.e. the ones in the Marvel Capcom series versus series with Marvel vs. Capcom in the title, if we're talking specifically about that, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3 would definitely be my favorite one. And that's the one I put the most time into.
It just is, man. I have gone through such a crazy, like, kinetic relationship with this game to, like, love it, I hate it, I love it, I hate it, and that's because of its funky-ass online over the years. Realistically, once I got the ability to actually start playing more Marvel 3 without the compromise of funky really bad net play that had a substantial effect on the way I felt about the game and X Factor and all that shit, UMVC 3 is something fucking special. What that game not just did for me personally as a game series impact on my career, but just as the game has grown over time, the older it gets, the more I value it. The older it gets, the more I go back and reference it to realize how amazing it is. And I don't even think it's by design. I think most of the things that
Spencer's
were great about
good
Marvel
character.
vs. Capcom 3 and Marvel vs. Capcom 2, they know shit sort of stumbled into. All of a sudden, it became a realization that, damn, bro, actually, this shit is really friggin' amazing. Would it have been potentially better with some patches and stuff like that? Absolutely. I think things could have evened the playing field and made things a little bit better. Fans are still literally doing that right now. But yeah, Ultimate Marvel 3 is like a lightning in a bottle situation, you know? It's the true evolution of what Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was conceptually, but, you know, it is still a sequel to Marvel vs. Capcom 2. It's a better Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And
yeah,
then,
I agree.
Who would have known?
I agree. I agree. He literally said it's basically a better Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I agree. I got nothing to add. He hit the nail on the head.
That Third Strike would have been Max's #1 Capcom fighting game, much less
we all
is
knew that,
my
Max. Let's be
#1
real,
fighting
dude.
game of all time, period.
We all knew that,
I think
dude.
I was pretty happy when I was coming up with this list. I don't need to glaze Third Strike, dude. Like, come the hell on. Yeah, this pretty much lines up with how I personally feel. If we had to ignore the top 10 list of Capcom fighting games that my friends made, and again, how different was this? Let's just go take a look. When I had to delegate and, you know, get my
design
thoughts
specifically
into action. Street Fighter 2 is right there. Third Strike is right there. Marvel 3 got snubbed. MVC 2 is up there. MVC 2 landed on the exact same spot, even though this is a general Capcom list. CVS 2 at number 6, and MVC 1.
Wait a minute. He said that's a general list. I never saw this stream, unfortunately. I think I was probably working at. Let's see. Devil May Cry 5 is in the top 10. I'm like, that easily agreeable. I don't see Devil May Cry 3 on there at all. I see Marvel vs. Capcom, Mega Man X. What is that? World? What the hell is World? I don't know what he's talking about. That one. Okay, Capcom vs. SNK 2, Resident Evil 2. It says something too. I can't read it. Third Strike is on there. Resident Evil 4 and Street Fighter 2.
One a bit higher. I do not want to make a list of top 10 Capcom games where fighting games are on there. To be completely honest, hate doing that. I usually do not like putting fighting games next to regular video games because I think of them differently. That being said,
True.
There might be space if people give a shit for me to look at the top Capcom games and make a list on that. A detailed list on what I think are like the top 10 Capcom games that maybe don't include fighting games.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. That is Maximilian Dude's top 10 Capcom fighting games. What did you guys think? And be sure to check out his videos too, man. He's great. He's gonna get a like. Yeah, he's a fantastic YouTuber. He's one of the only big YouTubers who I actually really like. I don't watch a whole lot of big YouTubers. I prefer the smaller YouTubers, but Max is one of the only big YouTubers who I actually support. So yeah, definitely check him out if you haven't, especially if you're a fan of fighting games. He's definitely a bit more educated on fighting games than I am, so definitely give him a watch. And otherwise, what do you guys think of his list? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next video.